We are just about to start our next Global Plant Kitchens webinar on social media and marketing, specifically aimed at plant-based kitchens. So whilst we're waiting for people to join, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Sarita. I am one of the mentors as part of the Global Plant Kitchen program. I'm also a teacher at Made in Hackney and do lots of other random bits and pieces when the need arises. And we'll introduce you to, well, Sarah can introduce herself, but she is our sort of expert for these expert sessions today.
Everyone, lovely to join you all today. I'm Sarah. I'm the founder of Made in Hackney. I've chiefly taken care of marketing for the charity since we started in 2012. I am not a marketing professional, but I did used to be a journalist and I did used to work in PR. So I think it's something that's come quite naturally to me. So I'm very happy to share what I've learned with you all today.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. And first of all, explain that this is part of our Global Plant Kitchens program, which is an initiative run by Made in Hackney, the UK's first community cookery school. And you can find out a lot more about us online, so I won't dwell on that too much here. But the main thing that we do is education around food and bringing people together as part of the community in a really, really joyous kitchen atmosphere. And actually, Sarah right now is in the Made in Hackney kitchen in East London, where there is a cooking class happening, sort of probably in the foreground of where she is. So if you hear any clatters, then that is the real life action of community cooking.
This is our main organisational video. We have a 3.5 minute, no, I'm lying. We have a 2.5 minute version, which tells the full story of Made in Hackney. And we also have a 1 minute version because we all know people's attention spans are quite short these days. So it's good to have a 1 minute and a 2.5 minute. This is a really critical marketing tool for us. We send it to funders, we send it to brands, and it's really everything that we do and we're about in a nutshell. So it's a really vital marketing tool. So it'd be great to kick off with that now. So that's the organizational video. That's one of our main marketing tools. As you can see, we were blessed to have a professional videographer and filmmaker make this video for us. We did pay them, but they did it at a very small pro bono rate. I would really recommend you get videos of your projects because they really bring what you do to life. So what are we going to do tonight in today's marketing session? We're going to look at how much effort you should put into marketing because it really is potentially a bottomless pit. We're going to look at the types of marketing for a vegan community cookery school that you might want to do. We're going to briefly touch on how to create a strong brand. And we're also going to look at social media, something else that can be a bottomless pit and you could have 3 people working on full time and still not think it's enough. So where do you start and what is a successful means of input for these things? Okay, so to kick off, how much effort to put into marketing? So when we started Made in Hackney, we just did the very basics. We got a logo, we got our website. We didn't for about 2 years start doing a newsletter. So you really need to decide what you have the capacity for, what you have the funding for, and what you want your outcomes to be. So a website is pretty crucial because until you have one, people don't take you seriously, they don't think you exist. Likewise, a social media channel does really need to exist, but it does need to be of a certain quality, or it might actually put people off your project. So if you are going to do it, you need to do it reasonably well. In terms of flyers, we had a designer working for us. And so we did put a reasonable amount of effort into that. But when you look at how we started, the flyers we were doing when we first kicked off versus the flyers we're doing now, there's been a big growth in that. So yeah, how we started is not how we're operating now. If you've got the budget, I would recommend having someone do marketing 3 days a week. But it's taken us 11 years to get to a point where we can afford to pay someone 3 days a week. So perhaps when you're starting out, it just might need to be something that you're doing as a founder or as, part of the founding team that are setting up your project. So that's kind of, how much effort to put into it. How much budget to put into it is also really critical. when you're doing your initial funding bids, whether you're looking for support from corporates or from grants and trusts, do put money in that budget for marketing, because you will need that logo, you will need that website, you will need, some social media, you will need some photos. So don't forget to do that. Most funders will fund an element of marketing, so don't think you need to leave it out. When we were doing our first fundraising bids, we always put in a cost for design, flyers, delivery of flyers, website cost, that type of thing. So don't be shy, do put it in. A good funder will expect to fund those things. They are really critical. So let's have a little look at the types of marketing you could do. So yeah, next slide. Thanks, Sarita. So we have three areas that we message around at Made in Hackney. We have all the messaging that goes out to our service users. So the people that actually attend our community cooking classes, come to our community feasts, and receive our community meals. So the types of marketing that goes out to these people looks quite different to the marketing that we use to generate donations or to sell masterclass tickets. So it's important when you're doing marketing to know who your target audience is. So if I'm trying to write a flyer or some promo materials to attract people to come to the cooking school to do a healthy eating course, I need to be very clear about that in my mind when I'm designing the marketing materials. Our community classes are all about social cooking and eating, healthy food, having a good time, and cooking on a budget. So, those are the kind of themes that the marketing needs to reflect. We normally keep this quite lo-fi, I would say, for our community participants. We still do flyers and posters. It's certainly not all digital, and we put them up in community centres, churches, religious venues, on housing estates, in the notice boards area, libraries, that type of thing. We also do a lot of email marketing to charities, third sector groups, councils, promoting our services. So this is just a really nicely designed email, really well worded, so you are being conveyed as professional. We also do, which is quite unusual, we do phone call marketing. So we might be, directly ringing community groups who we want to work with to talk about Made in Hackney and to talk about the quality and offer of our courses. Quite often people forget that getting on the phone and promoting your project is actually a type of marketing. It's not all jazzy social media. Sometimes it is just getting on the phone and being able to convey why another organization should partner with you and get involved with you. I'm quite good at talking. Lots of the Made in Hackney team are, but it certainly isn't everyone's forte. So you might need to have a few bullet points written up, a little bit of a talking, a script written up for those initial calls, especially if you find cold calling quite nerve-wracking. So the next type of people we communicate to are the people that pay to come to our masterclasses and pay to come to our fundraising events. So things like supper clubs, vegan cheese parties, things where we're trying to make money to put back into the charity. So when we're targeting this audience, it's very important that imagery is quite slick and quite aspirational. It needs to look very professional, because people won't part with their money unless it looks like, a valuable offer. Your messaging has to be really succinct, really clear. Like, what is it they're coming to? How much is it going to cost? And most importantly, how will this event support your good cause? So, if you're doing a vegan cheese party, don't forget to say all the money raised from attending this vegan supper club will support our community cookery school, because that's giving people a win-win. They're both going to get a great evening out or a great cookery class, but they know that the money they're spending with you is also going to a good cause. You can have too much writing on your marketing materials, especially when you have a lot to say. So do try and strip your messaging down to the critical sentences, the critical information only, because people can always then go to your website to get the full details. Things that we use to promote masterclasses and other events, we use social media. We use that extensively. We use our newsletter. We use paid ads online. And we also promote on other platforms, other networks. We have experimented with advertorials in national newspapers when we were offered a good deal, but we didn't really see much kickback, much return. We spent about £400, which is a really cheap price for an advert in a national newspaper, but we didn't really see the return for it to be worth spending that money again. The final audience that we market to extensively is our donors, people that we want to give us money to support our charity. So this is our fundraising marketing. It's really important when you're fundraising that your marketing message is very clear. So you're saying, this is what the impact of our work is. This is what money we want you to give us, and this is how we're going to use it. There's lots of different ways you can go about that. You can tell meaningful stories. You can shock people with all that's wrong in the world and how you're going to fix it. There's different approaches you can take to fundraising marketing, but what it must do is move people's hearts. Because it's all very well to look at something and go, that's interesting. But what's going to be the difference is a message that makes people go, I'm going to give them £10. I'm going to give those people £20. So you need to really move people. You need to really get people on board and go, wow, this initiative is tackling health inequalities and the climate crisis. I care about people. I care about the planet. I'm in. I'm giving them your money, my money. If you're not good at writing and you don't have anyone on board that is, you could look for a pro bono writer, pro bono journalist. You could even potentially get a pro bono marketing agency to support you and help you create these kinds of campaigns. Because just because you're a great vegan cooking teacher doesn't mean that this is something you're going to really enjoy doing. So do get help with it, because it will make a huge difference when it comes to fundraising. Let's have the next slide, please, Sarita. So this is just a gorgeous photo of different plant-based foods that we cook at Made in Hackney. It's really important to have beautiful images of food in all of your marketing, because whether it's for fundraising, whether it's for selling a ticket, or whether it's to get the community through the door to cook with you, the thing that unifies all of those groups is that they want to be impressed with the food. They want to think, wow, that looks good. I'm not in any way having second best by having 100% plant-based meal. That's something I want to eat myself. I want to go to that event, or I want to support them to cook great food. Now, when we started out, getting good quality food stills of our food was really challenging. We had lots of photos of blurry, shaky food, didn't look professional, didn't look good. So over the years, we've used a mixture of professional photographers donating their time to us. We use photo resources like Unsplash, where you can download photos for free. So they're not our photos of our food, but they're food that's similar to our food. So that's completely fine, especially when you're starting out and you don't have your own photos. And then as telephone technology with cameras has got better, our just sort of snapshot food photography has got better. It's really good to take photos of food outside in natural light if you're using a camera. And we've just invested at Made in Hackney in a really beautiful ring flash and 2 side lights, so that we can light the food that we make in our classes and hopefully create some professional looking photos just on our phones. So watch this space and see if you see our food photography improving. But yeah, I can't stress enough how important it is to have good quality images of food at your disposal. Let's go to the next slide, please, Sarita. So yeah, embrace plant-based. That's obviously something we can't stress enough. We find we use the word plant-based because it's more inclusive. Depending on what country you're in, there'll be different feelings and thoughts about the term vegan. So in the UK, the term vegan is becoming increasingly embraced, but for some people, it still feels a little bit like absolutism, and they feel more comfortable with the term plant-based. So this is why we chose to lean into the term plant-based rather than vegan. But that's a debate you can have with, amongst your peers and amongst your team. But we found for us this has really, really worked. In the UK, when veganism had a bit of a moment in the sun in the media, it was presented as being quite a white, privileged, health focused food movement. And we knew that veganism was so much more diverse than that, with culinary roots all over the globe, every ethnicity and culture having, plant-based food heritage and roots. And also, you can have really unhealthy vegan food and healthy vegan food. So we wanted our messaging around plant-based food to be so much more diverse, so much more inclusive. Yes, our food is very healthy still, but we still do, excellent cakes and what we call comfort food. So bring all that different type of food into your marketing so that when people see it, they're like, I want that. I want to go to that class, or I want to support that organization. So that's how we're kind of leaning into plant-based at Made in Hackney. And let's have the next slide, please, Sarita. Creating a strong brand. So, truth be told, when we started Made in Hackney, our focus was not on creating a strong brand. We were very much focused on securing a large chunk of funding from one particular funder who had a local food funding round, which is why we called our charity Made in Hackney, because it really lent into being local. 10 years down the line, we probably should have called ourselves something different, but we never imagined that Made in Hackney would grow to the national and then global entity that it has done. So when you're starting your organizations, don't just think about where your brand is now when you're naming it. Think about where it could be in 10 years' time. So don't do what we did and kind of box yourself into one borough. We're very lucky. Hackney has quite a lot of sort of cool associations with it. So it still kind of works. But think about a name that you can really grow with as an organization. What if you start out doing cooking classes, but you end up becoming a caterer? Or what if you start out only working in schools, but then later on you start working in, hospitals or hostels? So you don't want a name that's too specific. You don't want a name that's going to limit you. Ideally, you have a name and a brand that will grow with you. So go for something more generic. Don't do what we did and call yourself made in whatever area, because then it really limits your growth. You want a really strong logo. You'll see, I think it's in our next slide. Yes. So we have our original Made in Hackney logo, which is the kind of illustrated looking jar on the left hand side. Now, I'm not a marketing expert. I'm someone that's learnt marketing on the go, and I really loved this jar. But we had feedback from various, marketing experts that the logo needed to be cleaner and punchier. So maybe 6 years after we started, 7 years, we had a minimal branding revamp. So we're still a jar, but it's bolder, it's clearer, it shows up more on aprons. Had we, really thought about the cooking school that we are, would we have done a mixing bowl or a frying pan or something other than a jar? Possibly, but we're still quite happy and wedded to the jar. So that's what we've got for now. We also had a bit of an update when we had our 10-year anniversary. We had a bit of a fun logo, which you can see at the bottom of that slide, which we used for our social media highlights. That kind of logo you wouldn't put on a t-shirt or an apron. It's too fiddly, it's too complex, but it is quite fun on your social media. Let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about color palette. So when you're starting out, people would say to me, what's your color palette? What's your branding portfolio? And I wouldn't have a clue what they were talking about. But this is essentially it. You choose a small suite of colors and you get the color code for them so that they're easily findable by all designers. And these colors become your organization's signature colors. And you roll them out across your flyers, your website, and your social media. It took us about 6 different iterations of this color palette to arrive at this one. And we really enjoy it. We love the brightness of it, the funness of it. Designers we work with love to work with it. So now we're really happy with this color palette. But it took us years to get there. We got a bit distracted because our aprons are olive color. So we were trying to bring the olive into the palette. But actually, it's too dark for us. It's not fun enough. So, yes, it worked for the aprons, but it wasn't really working for our color palette. You'll also see on the right-hand side of the slide, the font that we use for the Made in Hackney logo, it's really important to have a signature font and for you to know what font, what your text is being done in your logo so that other designers can replicate it and so that you have something that's called brand consistency, so that across all your marketing materials, if someone was to just glance at them, they'd pick out the colors, they'd pick out the fonts, they might see your logo, but they would instantly know it was you. They would instantly know it was your organization. So just by glancing at some of our marketing materials, it should say to people, this is made in Hackney, because they recognize the colors, the font, and the logo. We're not quite there yet, but hopefully, we're getting there and we're fine tuning our marketing all the time. But if you guys can start off your journeys with solid marketing, then you're doing better than we did when we kicked off. So let's move on to social media. So social media, I find, especially since they updated all the platforms, to be a real bottomless pit, like a time hole where you can lose 7 hours, and we haven't got 7 hours. We're running cooking schools, we're busy. So you have to be strategic with your social media. You really need to be there. You can choose one platform, Twitter versus Instagram, because you're doing food. The visuals are quite important. So I would say Instagram is a great place to play. If you want to be on Twitter and be successful, you have to be on there having conversations, having dialogue, talking, responding to the news. That's quite important. Our Twitter, we don't really put any capacity behind it because we haven't got the time. So we're not really there having those sorts of conversations, which is why we have a small following there. We are, however, on our Instagram quite regularly. We're doing posts, anywhere between 3 to 7 days a week, which is really important. You have to be there all the time, posting, you know, every day ideally, but if not every day, at least 3 times a day. Sadly, the social media platforms reward you for your presence. The algorithm notices when you're there more, when you're commenting more, and so it will push your posts further up people's fields. So if you just want to log in, post, and leave, that is great for your mental health and that is great for your time capacity, but you won't get the reach and you won't get the followers. So there's a few tips. We recommend having 1 or 2 people tops managing your social media. You need a really clear, distinct voice. When we started, we had like 6 or 7 people doing our social media, and consequently, we had a thin voice, a diluted voice. And so we didn't have many followers at all for years. When I took the social media over and it was one voice, we noticed a sharp increase in our followers because it was clear there was someone talking, the voice was consistent. So have only 1 or 2 people managing your socials and have a set amount of time they're going to post and be on the platform every week. What you can do is create a rota. So if someone is doing the posting, but that doesn't want to be there all the time, other people in your team can be assigned to do the community management. So that is replying to comments, going onto other people's accounts and commenting on things. The more interaction on these platforms you have with other accounts, the more your user base is going to grow. So it is important that you're there doing all that stuff. If you don't want to spend all your life on social media, I know I don't, you need to be shrewd about these things and divvy up those tasks amongst the team. Even if they're just replying to people with heart emojis and smiley faces, you do need to do that because it is what will give your platform a wider following. So to make it really big on an account on a social media platform like Instagram, you really need to be doing one of these 3 things. You need to be entertaining people or giving people a really good laugh or doing something really shocking. So entertainment. You need to be offering an opinion or a viewpoint where people are able to learn and evolve. Or you need to be offering educational content where people are learning how to cook this, how to build that, how to do the other, how to grow this, how to do that. Because people are then following you for a reason. They're either learning your opinions and hearing your voice, they're having a really good laugh, or they're actually learning something educational from you for free. There's accounts that break that mold, but by and large, they're the 3 kind of golden pillars of things that you can do, or one of the things you can do to get a lot of followers. Now, this does require a bit more consideration for thinking about your editorial. And I'd say at Made in Hackney, we've not really nailed that yet. We're still kind of putting up posts that are, we did this, we did that. Next week, we're doing this. Come and join us. And that kind of posting is fine and it's what we have the capacity for. But really, if we were going to grow our social media following massively, every day we'd be posting how-to videos, how to grow this type of plant, how to cook this type of curry, how to make vegan fishy flavors, how to shop for under £5 for your family this week. That kind of useful content where people will come back to you again and again and learn something. But of course, it takes financial resource and capacity to create that type of content. So you need to decide how much time and budget you're prepared to put aside for that. By all means, do the sort of content we do, which is we did this, we did that, we did the other, but don't expect to get 200,000 followers. You're more likely to get something like between 2,000 and 30,000 with that type of approach. I think we can go on to the next slide. So this is just a little screenshot of the Made in Hackney account on Instagram. So it's really clear, it's really essential in your bio to put in what you do, what you are, and how people can get involved with you. So you can see from our description, we're a vegan community cookery school. We offer food support and cooking classes. People can buy a class, and that equals gifting a class. And then there's a link below where people can donate, book a class, or buy gift vouchers. Now, some marketing, not knowledge, but marketing recommendations is that you should only ever have one call to action at a time. So right now we have three: donate, book a class, gift vouchers. So there's all the options. But some people believe you should only have one clear ask. So it's book a class here, donate to our crowdfunder, or, donate to change the world today, like one clear ask. So we're not following that rule right now, but we do sometimes. If you have a little look at our selection of photo examples, it's the thing that's really stands out to me is how colorful it is. It's really important on Instagram that your images are what I call easy on the eye. So well lit, colorful, an enjoyable place to be. I don't really like to use the word aspirational, but actually there is an element of aspiration because we tend to edit these photos so that the realness is taken out. And by that, I mean like the dirty tea towels, the rubber gloves, the bucket with the tea towels in, the kind of realness of a community cooking school. We try and edit that out, the photos for Instagram, because it doesn't really look good. And when people arrive on your account, they tend to scroll past. So it's a bit of a balancing act between being real but also just shining the edges, just giving it a bit of a polish and buff so that your photos and content will actually do well on social media. Let's have a look at the next screen, Sarita. Okay, so this is just some more examples of our Instagram tiles. Some of them I would say are not ideal. I would say that the foraging video, that opening cover shot, is not really clear enough. And I would say that the food image of lots of meals at the bottom isn't really clear enough of what it is. It's not really popping. So as you can see, even us, we're not nailing it each and every time, but it does look colourful. It does look appealing. And when I look at that, I think, I want to know these people. They look a fun bunch. They look really fun. I'd like to spend time with them. And that's the feeling you're trying to create on your social media. You want people to spend time with you there. We go to the next slide, we'll just have a little look at how to crop your photos. So this is just an example of how you can take an average snap, not taken by a professional photographer, and just make it look a little bit better. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's ceiling in it. There's a bit of a recipe sheet. It doesn't draw your eye to it. And then just with a little bit of basic cropping, already the image is punchier and more appealing. Sorry, I was looking to the side where my computer is. So that's just really basic cropping that you can do on your phone. So I'd highly recommend you to crop your images before using. There's also an auto enhance button on your smartphones. I'd really recommend using that because that just makes your images pop a bit more. Let's see the next slide. So again, same, just did a little bit of a tidy up. This is a classic example. We've got the dirty paper towel, the tea towel, the baking tray, the used cup, all of that. But it's a lovely picture of this beautiful smiling lady with her cookie. So if you just give it a bit of a crop, you still get the beautiful lady in the cookie. That's all we need to say, while cutting out all the kind of what I call detritus. We don't want the detritus. If you're a documentary photographer, maybe you do, but that doesn't really work so well on Instagram unless that's your sole focus. So now we've got a reel to show you. We're still very much kind of learning the reel game on Instagram. We have an amazing volunteer that does reels for us. I wouldn't say we've completely nailed it, but it's something that we've been experimenting with for the last year. So let's have a look. I think this is kimchi noodles. Yeah, I think it's kimchi noodles. So let's have a quick look at this reel. With a reel, the thing that needs to really draw people in is that they've got to think, that's food I want to eat. So you need to get in quite close. You need to have it well presented. And ideally, there's a moment of action where people are lifting it up and eating it, or they're pouring sauce on it, or they're sprinkling something on at the end. Something that brings the food to life is what will always make a more popular reel. Like I say, we're working hard on it now. We've got a bit more equipment in the cookery school. So watch this space for some better quality content coming because we've invested in a bit more equipment. So that's our reels. Let's have a look at the next slide.
So hi, I'm back.
Hi,
The
Nicola.
next slide was the questions.
Hmm.
So I will just pose those questions to you if you're happy to go ahead that way. What is the best way to create interest for your classes in order to create a community?
So, like with anything, there's not one answer. You're kind of creating an ecosystem of interest. So, if this is for your community classes, we would always do a variety of things. We would put up posters in like community venues. We would also choose specific areas, so specific housing estates or postcodes, and we'd do a flyer drop to every single house. And we had this amazing flyer guy called Malanko, and we'd give him 5,000 flyers, and whenever we knew he was going to go out and deliver these flyers, we'd have to staff the phones the next day because we knew we'd get like 50 or 60 phone calls. So that method still works today. It seems really lo-fi, but getting a flyer through your door inviting you to a free cooking class, it's still working for us a treat. We've also built up a database of organizations, so other charities, other support groups, other third sector bodies, social workers, dietitians. And so we promote our classes to these professionals and sort of community groups so that they, as trusted providers and experts, can promote our services to their service users. And when we first started, we had a lot of meetings with these types of people so that they could see our kitchen, see we were professionals, see that it was a great offer. And then when they received our email, they would actually recommend it. It does sound quite lo-fi, but we really still to this day don't do much advertising of our community stuff on social media. We put it on there mainly to show the world that we do it. But what does work well is local Facebook groups for maybe local carers or the elderly or people supporting children with autism. So, sort of niche Facebook groups in your area, promoting the classes on these kind of groups, we find that really successful as well. So it's kind of digging a little deeper and being a little more personal. we find that's the best way to create interest for the community classes. We also offered them for free. So free is good, but what we had to do was overbook them so that when we had 15 people booked on, 10 people would turn up. So yeah, I think having that as a free service as well really helps.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll just move on to the next question. So here it is: how do you encourage actual conversations on social? The big question.
Yes. So I actually really enjoy doing this, but don't have the time because it sucks up your entire day. If you actually start a genuine conversation on socials that gets picked up, prepare to take a seat for 2 or 3 hours because you'll be on there tap, tap, tapping. So how do you do this? So if you do it on something like Instagram, you might pose a question. You might have a tile with just writing on it that says something like, uh, the government is refusing to fund free school meals for kids, something like that, a statement. And then under that, you will maybe do a small opinion piece about why this is BS. Sorry, so why why this is no good and why you disagree with it. And then people underneath will naturally comment. You can then share that post with other accounts, they might share it. But you need to be saying something that's a strong opinion that other people will either very much agree with or disagree with. And you need to be ready to have those conversations for people that disagree. At Made in Hackney, we are super respectful of other people's opinions. And even when people are being a real troll, we try and remain respectful and mature and to hear them out. And we have actually had some really interesting conversations turn around because of that approach. What else can you do to encourage conversations on social? You need to be quite timely. You need to respond to the news, respond to current affairs. Like if the government or there's been a political event that's just happened and people are wondering what they think about it, and you steam in with a very clear post about what you think about it, people really flock to that because people want answers, people want clarity, people want to feel safe by listening to what someone else thinks. So if you can get in quite quickly with these kind of responses, then that is also really critical. Ask questions. So conversations start by you asking questions. So on your posts, you can ask questions. You can ask confronting questions. Should the whole world go vegan? Discuss. I mean, that's gonna blow. And there'll be conflicting views on that. There's also an element of clickbait. Like we have quite pragmatic and nuanced views at Made in Hackney. But actually, if you want loads of people to pile in, your your tile might say something sensational like the whole world should go vegan. And then actually your post underneath it might explain that you kind of mean people living in urban developed areas and not Inuits and Maasai, etc. So yeah, there's an element of being a bit headliney, a bit attention grabbing, and then you can have a more nuanced explanation underneath it. I wish we had the time to do more of it because I think we would generate a lot of conversation, but we're running a cooking school, so we haven't we haven't got so much time.
That brings me nicely on to a sort of follow-up question to that we've had about using social media for opinion, which you mentioned. So why
Mm.
is that important to do as a community cookery school?
With opinion pieces.
Yeah, or making those statements, anything that is you sharing opinion.
So you don't have to do this as a cooking school because I think it takes a certain group of personalities to want to put your opinion out there and to take whatever flack or responses that come with it. So I actually don't think you should feel obliged as a cooking school, a community cooking school, to do that. But if you have a person or a couple of people that are prepared to stick their neck out and express those opinions, you will get more supporters, you will get more donations, you will just get more attention. So it's a really useful way of galvanizing support because people think, yes, I want to support them. They're saying that what's happening now is terrible and they're actually doing something about it rather than kind of government or anyone else, the council or whoever that is failing to address that issue. So it it's great to express opinion if you have the capacity and the right people for it, and the mental health resilience to also do that kind of thing, which is really important to think about, because it does take a lot of mental capacity to be out there. I did it for a few years for Made in Hackney's account. We experienced quite a bit of growth in our account. When I stopped doing it and handed it over, the person that took it over was like, I can do everything, but not the opinions. I
Mm,
can't do the opinion pieces, because then that's fair enough. They were like, I don't feel confident to do that. And it did mean our follower rate, our growth rate has really slowed down since we stopped sticking our neck out and doing that. We've really seen a difference.
interesting. It's about finding the balance, as you said several times in the session.
Mm.
Another question we had in advance was, how do you reach more audiences with few followers? So really, how do you build? How do you build
How
that?
do you build? How do you grow? So, yeah, it's really demoralizing when you start and you're like, we've got 2 followers, we've got 4 followers. But just to begin with, just some real basics that people forget. So, make sure your social media handles are all over your flyers, your website, your newsletter if you have one. If you speak at events, tell people to follow you on Instagram or whatever you're on. You're asking real people in the real world to follow you. That is how you'll start. That is how you'll kick off your supporter base. So we were out at farmers markets, vegan events, meeting real people, and then they would follow us because we would ask them to. And I'm sure when they arrived at our content, they were not particularly inspired in those days, but they liked us, so they followed us. So I think a lot of real world interaction is really important at the beginning, unless you are kicking off your Instagram account or similar with really high quality content. So you're going in for the recipe videos, you're going in for the how to do a weekly shop for £5. You're actually creating content and information. All you need to do to push that out is some really great hashtagging, some really great themes. Watch a few videos on the latest trends for getting reach and just stick with that. You're going to need at least a window, so like 9 posts for people to kind of take you seriously. So the first round of posting, you're not going to get many followers. So you need to build up anywhere between 9 to 18 for people to think, oh, that's what they do. It's almost like looking like an online portfolio. You then need to go on to other accounts which have big followers and start chatting to those people, start talking to them, DM them, leave comments under their posts, and then they will follow you and they will share their stories. Back in the day, we used to be really blatant. We used to just message people and go, can you reshare this for us? Can you reshare this for us? And because we were a charity and we're vegan, etc., they often did, even if maybe the quality of the content wasn't looking so crash hot. So, yeah, you can't be passive. You cannot be passive. You have to be there, really asking people, can you share this? Can you do this? And at a certain point, you reach critical mass. So when, say, 20,000 people are following you and engaged, when you do your posts, then they will just naturally get shared and commented on without you doing that actual direct asking. So yeah, the build up can be quite challenging, but you get there in the end.
Definitely. And I suppose it comes back to what you were saying earlier about having different marketing platforms for different purposes. And the
Yeah.
community isn't necessarily coming through social media. So don't spend all your time just focused on that. Even though it's what people see, I think you have to remember what's actually happening in the here and now every day.
Absolutely. And I actually think our newsletter, we have about 10,000 people on our newsletter, and they're people we've met at events, who've come to our classes, they've volunteered with us. And this is a really critical marketing vehicle for us. And when we did our COVID-19 fundraiser, because we were so quick with that to get the marketing out with that, the first sort of 10 grand we raised was purely from sending a newsletter out to those 10,000 people. So the value of that newsletter really came to play in moments like that. So building a newsletter base is really crucial. I was given some advice recently that people don't open their emails. What you really want to get hold of is their phone numbers so you can text them and send them WhatsApps. But I find that really intrusive. I'm not sure how I feel about that at all, but it is probably true. People do open a WhatsApp message or a text more than they do an email. But does it mean they open it with a smile and warm feeling? I'm not sure they do, because I'd be like, oh, this person's texting my phone. How weird. But yeah, there's definitely attempts for marketing experts to kind of be sliding into our WhatsApps and our texts and stuff because they know that you're more likely to read it than you are an email.
Yeah, there's always the new thing coming along, isn't there?
Yeah, and
We've
that's
got
why marketing's a bottomless pit. It's like constantly changing, constantly evolving. I remember when QR codes were like a new thing, and now we wouldn't consider having a poster without a QR code. So, yeah, staying on top of it can feel a bit relentless, especially if it's not something you're interested in or care about. You care about cooking healthy vegan food in the community. So, if that's you, you can try and do some marketing, but maybe think about getting someone else to do it who really does enjoy it and kind of gets it.
definitely. We've got time for a couple more questions that we've had. How do you manage privacy if you want to include people in photos and social media and
Mm. Yes, really good question. So it's a bit lo-fi again. We have a signing in book when people arrive at Made in Hackney, and people can tick a column photo consent or no photo consent. Plus, if anyone's going to take photos in the session on their phone or professionally, they'll always say, does anyone mind? Is everyone okay with me having photos? And if someone says no, we'll give them a really small sticker to wear so that when they're taking photos, they know to avoid that person. If there's a group of 11 people and four don't want photos, it's very hard to take photos of that group because one of those four people will just always be in the scene. So it's good to get, before you get a professional photographer down, make sure most of the people in the room are up for having their photo taken. Working with children, tricky one for photos. Ideally, you need photo consent from the parents if that photo is going to go on your website or anything more permanent. There's a slightly more casual culture to social media, but technically you should be getting photo consent for kids on your social media as well. In reality, I think what happens is we ask the parents, and the parents say, yeah, fine, no problem. And the photo is taken. That's possibly not best practice, but is it realistic to be getting forms filled in for every single child in every single class? So I can see why it happens with people just verbally asking the parent. But best practice, you're getting those forms signed. We did have some negative experiences where someone didn't want filming, and we made that very clear to the videographer, and they somehow ended up in one of our really early organizational videos. And it's awful when that happens because people that don't want their photo taken, it might be for a really valid reason to do with their safety or their location or anything really quite complex. And so that really felt awful to us, where not only has she told us not to film her, she ended up on our website in our organizational video. So yeah, you got to be really, really careful with that kind of thing. We've often set up fake classes for TV crews, media to come and visit, where the participants have been created, especially using our participants that we know love a camera. So the class is real, the teaching is real, everything's real, but we've put the class on specifically because we know everyone will be there is happy to talk to camera and be photographed.
you for that question. Final question before we wrap up. Made in Hackney has developed some very strong brand and celebrity partnerships. So, sort of, what advice would you have for people around that, and especially thinking of people that might not be in a large city like London, where there might be that sort of easy access to businesses and celebrities?
Yes. So, in order to be taken seriously by a celebrity or a brand, generally, there are always exceptions to the rule, always. And we love them. We love our exceptions to the rule. But generally, you need to have your website and your social media in order so that they can look at it and go, this is a collective we're proud to support and we can shout about publicly. And it's shared values, it looks professional, it looks inspiring. So, in order to attract that brand and celebrity endorsement, you really do need to have your marketing on point, even at a basic level. We didn't have any celebrity supporters or any brand supporters until we did have a good looking website and an okay social media following and a good newsletter. We just didn't. So, yeah, you might get them because you know them personally or you have a personal in, and that's fantastic. But yeah, to get those endorsements, you really need everything looking sharp. We still struggle to get celebrity endorsements. I fire off loads of emails all the time to agents and celebrities saying, "Hi, we're made in Hackney. This is our video. This is what we're about. Here's a great fit. We'd love to work with X or Y." No reply. So it can often be a numbers game, where you're just approaching different celebrities and different brands that really fit. And eventually you're going to get success. But do be prepared to get lots of not even a no, just silence, just tumbleweed, just nothing. Um, but surprising things happened when I emailed Ottolenghi. I emailed the dreaded info at email, which normally means this is going nowhere. No one is reading this. And Sammy Tamimi replied, and he's one of our most incredible celebrity supporters now. So sometimes magic just happens. Our other celebrity supporters, some of them are personal connections of mine. I've known their partner for years, or Liam Charles, Bake Off presenter, did his first baking class with Made in Hackney. But even like not tying those two people down to be our supporters has been extremely difficult despite those personal connections. So I would say persistence is also really, really key. When attracting a brand, they often want to know what they're going to get in return. Not always, but often. So you might want to say, we'll talk about you in our newsletter, or we'll take photos using your products, or we'll offer a discount code. Sometimes it's an exchange. They're giving you product or they're giving you money, and you're giving them the endorsement and putting you in the newsletter. Other times they don't want anything in return because they just see it as a corporate social responsibility piece. So they just give you the money or they just give you the product and say, thanks very much. And that's great. That's perfect. But sometimes there is this exchange where they're like, okay, we're going to give you a free stall at an event. We're doing an event next week at the Mind Body Soul Festival. And they said to us very directly, what are we going to get in return for us giving you this stall that's worth £800? So we said, okay, we can offer a discount code for you in our newsletter. Goes to 10,000 people. They said, fine, deal, done. So sometimes there's these exchanges, these deals that take place, and other times there just isn't. When there isn't, do remember to say thank you on social media, because some of the less demanding brands, you can kind of forget about them, even though they've done the most for you. So we also have to remember, say thank you to them, say thank you to them, show your appreciation publicly. Um, yeah. And who you want to be getting in touch with at brands, you want to be getting in touch with the marketing people. So people that want their product in interesting spaces and being used by good causes. And you want to be getting in touch with people in corporate social responsibility. So I'd say they're the two areas that you're reaching out. Or the owner or the founder. They're always the best, because often people below them are saying no, no, no. And you go to the founder and they're just like, yeah, that sounds great. So if you can weave your way to the big cheese, the big vegan cheese, that's always like the best way, because often it's a very quick yes, rather than lots of like lines of hierarchy to get a decision made. So yeah, the big boss, the marketing person, and the corporate social responsibility person are the kind of three people that you're approaching for these types of relationships.
Top advice to end on there. And yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. That's been so insightful. I have learnt a lot, and I hope everyone else has too.
Okay, thank you everyone. Good luck with the marketing. It can feel overwhelming. Just get started, just do it. And remember that you're all fighting the good fight, doing something incredible for people and planet. So the world wants to hear about it. They want to hear about you. So just get out there and start spreading your message and spreading your mission. It's going to be awesome. We'll look forward to seeing it.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Bye.